2 pages.
It's the same as it's the same one they sent there.
Yeah, I know, but I thought I think there might be 2 more that I. Yeah, 2 more pages. I just thought it'd be easier. You ready? Papers are causing a big commotion. It's been a long time since we've seen papers. There might not be enough. You have it on the phone also.
Yeah, it's on the phone.
Yeah, it's on the phone also. The last 2 pages not, but otherwise I'm not going to get there probably anyway. It's on the phone. I saw there was enough papers, so I said, all right, let me make it easier. So.
We got more. We got more here.
Okay, good. First, I want to thank the Rahmani family, of course, Chaburah Yosef HaTzadik, Darchei Avinoam, sponsored by the Rahmanis, the Zech Nishos, Rabbi's father, Rabbi Avinoam ben Chaim, the neshama of Gedlיה, and also the Parnes of the year, לעילוי nishmas of Gdalya, and Reb Shimon, the neshama of Gedlיה, only Simcha Nachis and Bracha. So one of the Chaburah at the end of the Shiur, the last Shiur, in a very, very sweet and respectful way, asked me a very obvious question. It wasn't a question, it was more of expressing a hope that, we've been working on so many different concepts and ideas in this Avodah, but he's looking for something a little bit more practical, l'maisa, which is not at all my strength in teaching, but I understand that it's something that we have to work on. So that's not what we're doing today. But the reason I'm telling that to you is because I decided that we have to spend a few weeks at least to work on some points, l'maisa, of what to do in terms of talking to our children, our grandchildren, ourselves. And I decided, though, that before we would begin that, Mitzvah Hashem, like in 2-3 weeks, that I wanted to just do this one mimer from the author of Bilvavi Mishkan, because otherwise I feel that we're not being honest about the practical avodah that we're going to be talking about. And the reason that it wouldn't be honest is because I think of all of the mashpiyim of our generation, the one who's most open, and sometimes in a way that's hard for us, certainly here across the ocean, to understand about social media and what's going on, the chiddush of Tafshin Pedal. We're living at a time where there's a chiddush in the world, a chiddush of social media, and the Kadmonim never ever, maybe the Ruach HaKodesh, they had some sparks of intuition, but they didn't see what we were going to be up against before Mashiach comes. And there are many things in his teachings and his writings, some of you have expressed to me over the past few years that you're very bewildered by, and they're very hard and very harsh. Remember, those of you who know that Rav Schwartz is a big tzaddik and a huge Talmud Chacham. He's a Bnei Braker, he's a Panavisher, and everything is very deep, but at the same time there's black and there's white. And it doesn't always work with American sensibilities. We would like to say the same thing, but over like Shemitah. And he'll say it in 2 pages, and everyone's what is this? What is this? And there's been some fallout as a result of that, which I discussed with some of the Chavenettes as well. It's almost like you have there's this magazine, Mishpacha magazine. It's a wonderful publication that they've been trying to put out for so many years already. But there's an American edition and there's an Israeli edition. They're very different. Because things that you could say in SSL, you cannot say to American Jews. You just can't. And there are things that are left out also, because if you put it in the Israeli one, they'll burn down the office. But in America, you could put it. There was a letter like that in yesterday's Mishpacha. If you take a look, you'll see, and you'll know which one I'm talking about, that Kol Kavod that they put it in. And I'm sure in the HaTzadik edition, they did not put any translation of that letter into Hebrew. Would they ever do that? I don't know. And they're trying their best, but they recognize, and they're totally right. And we would all do the same thing, that there are different sensibilities. Sof kol sof, that's the Middle East. And one of the main mistakes that the American administration all around the Western world, one of the great mistakes that they're making in trying to understand what's happening there right now is that it's the Middle East. This is not Washington, it's not Scarsdale, it's not the Five Towns, it's the Middle East. And there's a certain culture that's Middle Eastern. I'm not just saying Jewish, there's a certain culture that's Middle Eastern that the Feinschmeckers in America can't understand, or in London or in Paris. They can't understand. They're beginning to get a taste of it because there's a lot of the Chayas are coming over to Paris and to London, and there are quite a few here as well. But to understand, it's a different moichen in the Middle East. So there is a mimer here. Now there's a new sefer that Tuvia sent to me a few weeks ago. Some Mordecai sefer from Rav Schwartz from the Bevavi called Shar Hanun, which those of you who are familiar with this from know that especially in the past few years, he's been talking a lot about this inyan of Shar Hanun in Kedusha and the Shar Hanun in Tumah, because there's tons of evidence in Teres Hashem that is showing that we're living now in the Shar Hanun. And before Mashiach comes, the birurim that need to take place are birurim and the Shar Hanun. In Kedusha, we have access to certain things now that we never, ever, ever had access to, ever. In Kedusha. They come from the highest place beyond the Memtes, Shari Bina. They come from Shar Hanun in Kedusha. The fact that we're sitting here and talking about these things. Our parents and grandparents were just suffering alone. Not just our parents and grandparents, just only now there are conversations about certain inyanim in Avodas Hashem, especially when it comes to the midah of Yosef HaTzadik, that never ever were allowed in the past, and no one even would think of talking to a father about, let alone speaking together. And it's happening, by the way, some of you know, that slowly, it's happening that in different yeshivas, there are some yeshivas that they're beginning to open up as the older chaver sort of moving on, that the younger Rebbeim for themselves are more open because of, again, they've been in the West for a long time, so they're more open about certain things. It's not the European Rebbeim that we had and so on. So they're more open. So in different yeshivas, the guys themselves are beginning to talk and beginning to meet about these things. And there are Rebbeim, to their credit, Kol HaKavod. There are Rebbeim that are helping, that are supporting, and I speak to these people all the time from different places. And it's just a matter of time till things will open up in a much healthier way than they've ever been before. And that's coming from the Shar Hanun. There's no question about it. The fact that in our times we can learn Chassidus and even Panimish, Rosen de Rosen, and learn Kabbalah Zachen, and to talk about certain things and relationships in a way that were never ever discussed since Bereshis, is because we're living now on the cusp of the Gula of Mashiach, and we're preparing for the day where we're going to be Nevi'im again. And we're going to be able to see things in a clear way, in a way that a human being has not seen since Moshe Weinberger. So we're preparing for that. So there's a nun, when the Shar HaNun of Kedusha, it's murdig. At the same time, everybody here knows that the Seder of creation is Zeh, Luma Zeh Oser Elokim, and the last fight, the final frontier That's for Star Trek fans. The final frontier. The final frontier. That was a Lashon over there? Something like that. I don't know. It's a long time. That was high school, but the final frontier of this Milchama in the Sha'ar Hanun, the 50th gate between Kedusha and Tumah, is between what we're seeing now, as I said a moment ago, an unbelievable openness when it comes to conversation about things that are deep and real, and learning Pnimis HaTorah, even young people like ourselves, all of us, and the generations on fire with more and more and more. Just go to Eretz Yisrael by Yad Kislev and go to the Binyanei Ha'umah and see what's going on over there by the Svarim sale, by Yad Kislev. And Bechlal, what's happening in the world is unbelievable. But the Milchama is a Milchama of Pnimius HaTorah, of the deepest Torah, and the Tikkunim of Yisod and Yosef HaTzadik, versus the darkest side of Amalek, which we're seeing now B'Poil in what happened Shemoneh Atzeres. We're seeing that B'Poil physically, and in Ruchnius, it's social media. Now, those of you who know me, I'm not from those that have waged a war against technology. We've spoken very openly about the dangers of technology, and everybody knows it. Anybody here that's living in this world has an understanding of what's going on. And if you have children, you know that every single minute of your lives, you and your wife are frightened, are terrified by what's out there, are terrified. And even if you were Chalila Messiah on yourself, you want your children to be protected. But we don't know what to do, because there's never been such a thing. So this is not by way of knocking technology. I understand the value. I don't truly understand, because I'm not so familiar with all of the capabilities of all the things that, but I understand there's a gewaldige koyach that technology has in Kedusha, that there's never been before, that we could reach now a Jew that's stuck someplace in Montana on a mountaintop, and this Jew can now be part of Fabrengen. He could sit on the floor Tisha B'Av with other Jews, even though he's sitting by himself. He has a phone, he has a computer. He can listen to Shiur from Yerushalayim. He can listen to Shiur all over the world and be part of Am Yisrael. It's unbelievable. There's never been such a thing in the world where Jews have been able to find other Jews and to reach other Jews. That you look, somebody gives a shiur and it says that 852 people saw this shiur. That's a big classroom, right? So it never was such a thing. You always sat with a few people and you learned. And what about the other Jews? They're all over the place. But now there is such an Indian. So the Toiv and the Sha'ar Hanun and Kedusha that is able to be accessed by means of what Hashem has brought down into the world at the end of time is Ein Sof. It's a taste of Ein Sof. But the tumah of the time that we're living in, that is generated by that same world of technology, ubefrat, social media, is a bechina of Ein Sof. That there never was such a thing. It's a bechina of Ein Sof. So in order to be able to talk about practical things that we could do to try our best, aside from all the pneumias that we tried to learn, which is our most powerful weapon, as we're going to learn here, we have to understand the enemy. We have to understand the pneumias, not in a silly way. It's bad, there's disgusting things, there's pornography. Of course. Not just in a chitzonistic, shitchistic way. We as parents, as grandparents, as Jews, have an achrayus to understand the enemy. This is what Americans don't understand about Hamas. This is what the West cannot understand about Hamas. They cannot understand. I'm not just talking about the anti-Semites. The anti-Semites don't want to understand. That's what I was talking about yesterday. It doesn't make difference if you show an anti-Semite. I think that Eli Wiesel Zecher Levacha said that the definition of an anti-Semite is somebody who hates you before you were born. Think about that. It's a very tifa, it's a sharp word. somebody who hates you before you, because it makes no difference. Like I was talking about yesterday, because you have svaras and tainas and proofs. You have proofs. There were 30 doctors that were studying what happened to the women in Gaza. 30 doctors. No, they can't sit over for 2-3 weeks because we're Jews and we bury. We don't leave them sitting in laboratories. But there were 30 doctors, and the Welt, because that anti-Semite, there's no difference with it. It doesn't make a difference. We're not talking with these people because there's no conversation with people who hate you before you were born and after you die. There's no conversation with such people. But to try to even understand the mentality of people who seem to be otherwise decent, fair people who don't seem to be signing Israel. But how could they be so confused about reality? We're now living in a generation, it's now just starting this generation. I mean, anybody, I don't remember when when it started, or social media. I remember the first time I was going to Levaya, the person who was driving us to the Levaya had a phone, a cell phone. And, I had heard that but he was like up on all the gadgets, and he had like this big clunky thing. I don't know when social media started. It's all together with the internet. That mitzias of the internet, where there began to be connections way beyond the mitzias of the Dalet Amos that a person lives in, or even beyond radio, television, v'chulei. So we need to understand the pnimius of this, not in a silly way, not as a campaign against technology. It's not the point. The point is to understand the enemy and what we're up against. And when you understand the enemy, then you have the ability to defeat the enemy. If you don't understand the enemy, and that's what's happening now. So there are all these diburim, the ceasefire. The biggest gelechter of all is a two-state. Anybody that understands the Middle East, the Arabs know this. The Saudis all know this. All the island, the whole island, they understand that two-state solution. It's a gelechter. The whole thing is it. Even the Rishonim themselves, it's hard for them to even make believe that they would stick to such a thing. That's why you see that Arafat, Yimach Shemo, he couldn't even make believe. He couldn't even make believe because he was so unsophisticated. He was a poy, a peasant. So he couldn't even. Abbas is a little bit more educated, so he tries to make up all kinds of diburim. But he's a big anti-Semite. He's a poy, and he's a Ishmaeli. And you see that it's a murdic thing. That the ones who are open and honest will tell you that there's no such thing as a two-state solution. We want to kill every Jew in the world, or if not in the world, certainly every Jew over there. If Jews want to live, they should live in Warsaw and in Lodz. That's what they would like to send us, to Warsaw, not to America, because they want to take over America too. They send us to Warsaw, but there's someplace like that in Galicia. So we have to understand, what is that? Where does that come from? That koyach of Amalek that is now mislabish at the end of time in the Hamas, in the Ishmaeli, in such a way, and in a more sophisticated way in Western society, in Western civilization. The last seif of the Roman Catholic Church, of that world of Asaph. My wife was telling me last night that the present Pope said something about anti-Semitism being very bad. And my wife wanted to know what I thought about that. So after she asked me 4 times what I thought about that, I said to her that I think nothing about it. I think it's nothing. It means nothing to me. There's no difference in my eyes between him and the guy that was in Hamas on October 7th at all. No difference to me. At all. To understand the pnimius of this, what that means. So let's begin. There are the first parak of the Maimer, the first parak of the Maimer is sort of just setting things up, so we're not going to get to the meat of it at all today. But I didn't want to skip the beginning because it's not a chacham to do such a thing. But this is the sort of introducing the Nakuda Pnimis. Parak Aleph Gidrei Koach Hara Sha'ad Dor Achrain. To understand the Geder of Ra. The Sefer is divided into two parts. The first part of the Sefer is the Shar Nun in Kedusha, and the second part of the Sefer is the Shar Nun in Tov. So, to understand Gidrei Koach Hara Sha'ad Dor Achrain, the Geder of Ra at the end of time. That's what we're learning. Nisbanin Ma'at B'Siyata D'Shmaya L'Havin Es Hatzura Shabo HaBoire Olam Bor Es Olamo. We're going to try to understand the world that Hashem created. Koloshna Pasuk, as it says in Pasuk, which the Chachamim fixed up a little bit for our davening. But the Pasuk itself, as you all know, the Pasuk in Navi says that Hashem is Yotzer Or. It does not say Borei Choshech in the Pasuk. It says Yotzer Or Uborei Ra. But for fear of misunderstanding, it was cleaned up a little bit and edited. But the true pasuk is Hashem forms light and creates evil. Uborei Ra. Eifa hasharish shel haborei Ra. Shemimenu ishtalshlu shel koach hara bechlal. We want to understand in this mimer, what is the shorish of this Ra that Hashem created, from which was mishtal shel came over the years since the world was created, this koach of Ra bechlal, Ra in the world bechlal. What is it? What's the shorish of it? What is it? Ve'efa ha'gilui shel oimek hara shemazgala b'dor basra. And what is the gilui, and how is the oimek hara that was saved for the end of time, the deepest Ra? It's mizgala b'dor basra here in our last generation. Dor basra means dor ha'achrain, dor didan, our generation bifrat, to understand the Ra in our generation bifrat. So he begins talking about what we've been discussing the past couple of months, which is the eyes. Clearly, it has to do, this Ra is connected to what our eyes are watching, what we're seeing with our eyes. So Yisoid Divrei Chazal Kiyadua Eina V'Liba Tresa Surida Aveira. The Gemara's, a famous Gemara, and Chazal speak about this in many places, and the Svarim talk about this all over, that the eye and the heart are the Sersurim of Aveira, like the Seichim, the merchants, the intermediaries. The eye and the heart are the Sersurim of Aveira. That somehow the eye and the heart are those two parts of us that communicate, that transmit Ra, that bring Ra into the person. Mitzad kach, kamei shemer ze gemar b'saita, kimiri de'ein yetzara shaylet ad l'masha ein avrayos. So the Gemara says on Saita that the Yetzirah does not have any control of a person unless it's something that the person has seen with his eyes. The Yetzirah does not take over unless it's working with something, it's giving you something to see. Ein Yetzirah Shoyleit Ela b'masha ein avrayos. Shoyleit doesn't mean it can't influence or affect, but to be Shoyleit, the Yetzirah cannot overtake and overthrow a person without re'i, or without the eye, and without eyes, without the person seeing something. Kleimer Mizbar Kan B'Gemara. Gemara is explaining Shema Shaha'ayin V'Halev Hem Treis Yisuri Da'Aveira, that this reality, that the eye and the heart are the two Sersurim, the Seichim, the intermediaries, the transmitters, the influences of Aveira. Eina Kavana Shehem Mishamshim B'Rak Yisuri Aveira. Avol Efshar Gam B'Ladeim. It doesn't mean that there are other Sesurei Aveira and that they are listed among them, and it's possible for a person to slip into darkness without them. The Gemara is very clear. Ella b'masha ein avros. that it's only with what the eyes see. That's how we fall, only because of what our eyes see. And if the eye is not able to see, and that, of course, the question of a person who l'ilui is unable to see, doesn't have eyesight. What does that mean? By the time we're finished, we'll understand that very simply, very clearly. It's not just a matter of the physical eye. Gemara is saying very clearly that if the eye doesn't see something, then there's no metzias. There's no metzias of Yetzirah, really. Behind the sheshurish metzias hara, mizgala ba'ayin. So he explains that the root of the metzias of Ra is mizgala ba'ayin, is manifested in the eye, is found in the eye, which is on a deeper level the true meaning of ayin ra, not just an ayin hara, but ayin ra, bilam, ayin ra, an emistic ayin ra. The evil eye is not some superstition that's used in that, but really what an ayin ra is. The connection that a person has to ra, it comes ha'ayin ra. It comes from the evil eye, the eye of evil, the eye that is watching, that is seeing evil. And that's what's contained in this sentence of Chazal. The Gemara, they have a Kabbalah. Turn the page. I'm sorry, it's upside down. Omnam b'mitzias hara yeshnam roivdim. However, the mitzias of Ra, there are many layers. This is only as far as the most chitzoniistic layer of Ra that the human being is familiar with, which is called, throughout Chazal, Yetzirah. Yetzirah is just the tip of the iceberg, what's called the Yetzirah. In Chassidus, we don't even use so much the word Yetzirah. What's used in Chassidus? Nefesh Bahamas, right? They were already heading much into the epicenter. Yetzirah is on the outside. You go deeper, then you're talking really about Nefesh Bahamas, Sitra Achra. And there's even deeper madregas of Ra. So Yetzirah, Koloshon Chazal kan shezakar shel Yetzer, an inclination, a temptation. That's the Yetzirah. But the shorish of Ra is something else. The 49 and then the 50th shar, it's something altogether much deeper. So far, this is the working area of the ayin that transmits a certain message to the heart through the Yetzirah, through the eye. But he says, for instance, if you look in Chazal, ba'od mekaymes munach oimek sheyesh shorish Yosef pnimi l'ra. You'll see in Chazal, without even looking in the Kabbalah Svar, you'll see in Chazal that there's a deeper shorish, that the Yetzirah and the eye seeing something that it shouldn't see, that's talking about on the surface of things. But we see in many places in Chazal that there's a shorish Yosef pnimi l'ra. There's a deeper shorish of Ra. I feel a boyfriend sheldom ena roes hadavi. Even when a person, such a person who's blind, l'ilui, or any person who even has healthy eyesight, but there are things that are the shorish of Ra is deeper than what you see. Is boyfriend sheldom ena roes hadavi, even when you can't see. For instance, the Gemara in Megillah on Daf Tesvav is the Gabi Rochav. Now, Rochav, of course, in the end, she was misgayer and she became a big tzaddikus and the wife of Yoshua. But she had a very difficult upbringing, we'll put it like that. And everybody knows that she had a career that is was a career of Tumah beyond anything we could understand. Her Tumah. She was the Metzias of Znus in the world. She contained within her the whole Metzias of filth, of Znus. And even her name, Rachav, meaning open, expansive, in Tumah, to anything, to everything of Tumah. So the Gemara says, Kol oimer Rachav Rachav miyad nikri. The Gemara says a shocking thing, that back then while she was still alive, and perhaps even later on, for some time, whoever would say the word, her name, Rachav, would immediately have a maisa that would spill seed. Would have, there'd be a pagam habris. When a person heard the name, Rachav, you didn't have to see her. Kol oimer Rachav Rachav miyad nikri. Shunasa balkari, the person would have an emission when he would hear the name of Rachav. This is not Bubamaisis. This is the Metzias. Kamei Mavur Sham she'etzem zeh shumaskir shma kvar munach by oifen shara means even saying her name without seeing her was already a madrega of Ra. After pi shu'einenu roya, even though you weren't looking at her, and they didn't have posters and magazines. They're the name. So even though the Gemara is medaktis, the Gemara itself, the Gemara was resisting this. It's so extreme. So the Gemara says, no, that's only if you maybe once saw her. Maybe then. I guess the equivalent would be now if there was a picture. Okay, but Mikomakom, Yesod had the Ramunach come to the Gemara. The Yesod of this Gemara is very clear. Even though we learned that the Gemara says that the Yetzer is only shoylate, only takes over with what a person sees with his eyes, but from here we understand that Yesh ba'omek koyach shara, that ba'omek, in a deeper level, there's a koyach of Ra, noisaf, an additional koyach of Ra, of evil. Shemazgala bepeh. That's mazgala with a person speaking. When somebody would say, doesn't say when someone would think about it. Said a person would say the name Rachav. Safal. A person would say the name Rachav. It sounds crazy. A person would say the word. Finished. Something with the peh. Now we've spoken about this over the past couple of years. There's a very deep connection between that part of us, Kedushas HaBris, and Kedushas HaPeh, Kedushas HaDibur. That both of these these two are very, very deeply connected. And we see that there's a koach of Rash, there's Mizgala B'Peh. This is why those people who think that there's nothing so terrible about saying some words that are not nice are wrong. There's something very, very terrible about saying words that are not nice, that are inappropriate. The koach of the mouth and the koach of Yesod, it's the same thing, comes from Yesod. So we see there's a koach rad noisav shemazgal bepesh ezel kol oimer rochav rochav miyadnik shunas balkari nulvad koach harashal ayin. So we see there's something else that's even deeper, the koach of the peh. Nulvad koach harashal ayin. You'll look at the note, but rochav is the icy cherev sword. The shoyish of Ra, this destructive, in which Hashem created this terrible destructive koach that's called rochav, that's called charv. Of course, when it's brought into Kedusha, so Rachel was Yeshua's wife. Eretz Chemda Toiva, Urachav. It's very connected to the Kedusha of Eretz Yisrael, which we'll talk about also a little bit. That's what the Milchama is going on right now in Eretz Yisrael. It's about this. It's about this. The deeper shurish of the Milchama is what's happened in Eretz Yisrael over the past years. In this tumah of Rachav, in this tumah of Znus, of impurity, of Gam HaBris, and Kedushas Eretz Yisrael, which is why we couldn't You couldn't be in Eretz Yisrael without having a bris milah. It wasn't shy. The other side of the Yarden, there was such a Metzias, but it couldn't be coming into Eretz Yisrael, which is what happened with Yeshua. It was a Tanai, in order to be able to come to Eretz Yisrael, you have to have Kedushas HaBris. So we understand that Eretz Yisrael be'etzim is not Soivel Pagam HaBris. It's not Soivel Pagam HaBris. And we've already spoken about this, that the Kuda Pnimis of Yishmael is Pagam HaBris. The whole Indian of Chamas is that Tumah of Pagam HaBris. Yishmael, that's why when they came in, that was their whole avodah was this Pagam HaBris. That's the whole tumah of Yishmael, and the whole Tanai for us being able to have Eretz Yisrael is to overcome within ourselves this avodah of kedushas HaBris, of tikkun HaBris, of Yosef HaTzadik. And this is what came to a head right before Mashiach comes. This clash. How is it possible that the Ishmaelim were able to go into Eretz Yisrael like that? What happened? I'm not talking about insecurity, I'm not any of that stuff, but how that happened with the fence and with all the machines that they have, the computers, how it happened, such a thing, that the Ishmaelim come in their bicycles and motorcycles and trucks, and they're coming on kites flying in. How can such a thing be? How is it possible for the Ishmaelim to cross into the border? The terrorist is not about their weapons. It's because we no longer have any borders in our lives. We don't have any borders. Yosef HaTzadik is the border. And when our borders are weak, when our borders are not strong, when the borders are altogether down, so then the first to come there is the Ishmael. That's their whole lineage is Pagam HaBris. That's the whole lineage is Niv, Pagam HaBris. That's why they couldn't be Makabel the Torah. That was what they said they couldn't hear when the Hashem offered the Torah to the nations, to the Malachim or whatever, the Sarim of the nations, and the Yishmael asked, what does it say? It says, "Listen enough." Esav is not to kill, but L'Tirtzach. But Yishmael is Niv. So the Atzmius of Kedusha in the world of Yosef HaTzadik, of Atzmus Yosef, is Am Yisrael. And the place of Shmiras HaBris and Kedushas HaBris is Eretz Yisrael. And if there are gay parades on the streets of Yerushalayim, I don't know if they did that, maybe it's in Tel Aviv, I'm not sure. But if there are such things that are happening, again, I don't mean this as a way to hurt any individual person who's struggling with that tumah. That's not what I'm talking about. But if it's become such an inyan that in Eretz Yisrael the rate of znus and so on in Eretz Yisrael itself means that the borders are down. Understand? The borders are down, and it doesn't make a difference. You could have the best technology, meaning the most powerful computers watching over what's going on over there, and then the next thing you know, there are thousands of them coming in on motorcycles and on trucks. They're coming in. How could there be such a thing? You ever go on the train in Yerushalayim? It's a gewaldige thing. That's where we go to see the kids, because the kids, Shifi lives in Azay Abira, right? So you take the Shimon HaTzadik, and it's Mechai. It's the train. Anybody has to think, like, who's going onto this train? You know, when you're, right? How does that work over there? So, when we were there a few times ago, we were taking the train, and everything's going on, so I had this conversation with somebody, an Israeli friend of mine that I know, and we were talking about this, like, what's up with the train? Like, where's the security? What's going on? So he was telling me how every single inch is being watched. Every single person. And there's a whole... Did you ever go into the police station in the old city? You see the cameras that they have all around every single inch of the old city? You go into the police station, right when you go through Shayafo, there's a police station. Right when you go into if you go into the police station, somebody once took us in there, and you go to the police station, they have hundreds of televisions, and they have every single place, all over the old city. There's everywhere there's. They try to cover them. They try to put things on them and do, but there's televisions all over the place. Everything's being watched. So how is it possible that such a thing happened? But the guy, like at the television, fell asleep. Something happened. But the shirish of what happened is not somebody that messed up, and they're going to be putting, God forbid, all kinds of crazy things are going to be with people, the accusations, who knows. Okay, people were batching up with something, but the pneumius of it is, the shurish of it is, not somebody that fell asleep. That's Rahmanis. But and he never would have, none of those people would have intentionally allowed for such a thing to happen. Somebody made mistakes, but the shurish of it is that we don't have borders. The same way you want to have in your own house. It's your house. It's your own house. So anybody who ever saw the honeymooners knows that Ralph felt he was in his own house, at least in my house, he felt he was a balabas. I don't remember his wife's name. Alice. But Alice made it very clear to him, you're not such a big balabas here either, right? That was her Indian, is he not such a big balabas? And he's pounding his chest that I'm the balabas, right? So you and all of us without children, everybody's, there isn't a day that I'm not having a conversation with a parent about this. It's my house, I'm the balabas over here, this is my kid. What do you mean? I'm in charge over here. And then the next thing you know is, which model phone you're ordering for your kid. And handling with your kid, you're saying a half hour a night. That's it. The kid says an hour. And you're like negotiating. You have to bring in Henry Kissinger into your own house to talk about handling with your own kid about a half hour. And the kid says nothing doing. No, I'm sorry about it. And then you're wondering. Then you sit down with your wife and talk about this. Exactly, how did he do that? Like, what exactly is the usually in negotiations you have to have. So, like, what is it that the kid holds over me? And we know what the kid holds over me, and we're all terrified about it. Because if you don't give in, Daddy or Abba or Tati, if you don't give in, no, so I won't put on the phone tomorrow. And the 2 or 3 times I go with you to shul every now and then, done. Just forget it. I might even text some girl that someone's been talking to me about. Because even the cheapest phone has some texting on it. I don't know. I might text a girl. That's the big bargaining chip that they have. They hold over us. So we're begging them, please. Is an hour okay? For now. The kid says to the father, for now. Next week, we'll talk. This week I'll let you have it. I'll do it for now. But you have to hand in your phone at night. You have to give your phone to mommy and daddy to watch at night. Sorry, the kid starts to walk out of the room. Not talking anymore. And you're asking yourself, how did this happen? How did I lose control over my own house? How did this happen? The dalaramas that you have. And you paid a lot of money for it. To have your own dalaramas. Your dalaramas, you have no control. That's in the house. And the Rosh Yeshiva in the yeshiva doesn't have control either. He thinks he does. Because every now and then they come in and make a check in a room or something. The kids are all living. I mean, not all. The kids that are up to stuff, they live. The same way that there was a bacher years ago that was laughing when I said to him, how do you, he was telling me about problems that he has with the phone. So I asked him, how do you, it was like 14, 15 years old. I said, don't your parents, like, they know what you, like, how do you, you're on their account. And the kid looked at me like I'm from outer space. He said, my parents don't know that I have this phone. I said, how do you have a phone? Like, what is it? Because I'm still thinking like AT&T and wires, So how do you, he says, I got in the drugstore, I got in the store, in the supermarket or something. You buy it with a certain amount of hours. My parents have no idea that I have this. No idea that I have this. And I told over, it wasn't in the Chaburah, I told over the other day, and I'll stop here, I told over to one of the Chaburahs the other day that there was a Rabbi, a very, very, very fine Rabbi that I was talking to 2 weeks ago. No, like 3 weeks ago, I was talking to this Rabbi. And some of you might have heard this, but I don't remember what I said. But he's a wonderful Rabbi that keeps up with the boys. He teaches younger Bachram, like 7th, 8th grade, but he keeps up with his Chaver, and he's still close to the guys, like in 9th, 10th, 11th grade. He keeps up with them, which is what a Rabbi should do. And he was sitting with one of his Bachram, who's now in 11th grade someplace. And the Bacher, I don't know when I said that, but the Bacher, what? Shalshudas. Oh, So the bacha was the Rebbe said that the bacha was holding his phone when he was talking, and the bacha is in a lot of things that are not healthy, and he's talking to his Rebbe about it, and whatever he was talking, and the phone fell onto the concrete or the floor, hard floor, and the bacha jumped to pick up the phone, and he looked at the phone, and he started like to cry. He was like convulsing, crying. And the Rebbe thought that because the phone cracked, and the boy was crying because the phone cracked. And the Rebbe asked him, what is it? And he showed him, he said, the phone was fine. It survived the fall. The phone was fine. So the Rebbe said, the phone's okay. He said, Rebbe, that's why I'm crying. I was hoping it was destroyed. Well, it's a murder of I can't stop thinking about this. He said, I was hoping that the phone was ruined. Of course, I would right away go get another one, like as soon as I could, or to fix it. But I was hoping I'd have like a day, a few hours, just to be myself, to be free, to be normal, to be healthy, to be a kid again. That's what he said. I never heard such a strong hasaga of what's happening, because the kid himself is saying to his Rebbe, held, because the kid's holy. He's a holy person. He's a yid. He's a yeshiva bach. He's holy, and he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know how to control this. So he was hoping that maybe it was ruined. Maybe it was ruined. So as parents, this is a little bit practical, but as parents, we have to wonder, why is it that we subject our children to such misery? And I say we, because I'm having these conversations all the time with the parents, where they're telling me that even though the official policy of the school is that, talking about from little kids enough, even though the official policy of the school is no tolerance for any of these iPhones and things, nevertheless, my son's telling me that my daughter's telling me that he's the only one in the Chaburah that doesn't have, or that they all have phones. And then if you check into it, he's exaggerating a little bit, but it's not far off. But there's a lot of that going around. It's all over the place. So the finger has to be pointed to the parents who are not taking responsibility. Because if all of the parents in that school would agree, if all the parents would do the same thing, and they wouldn't lie to the school, that goes all the way up in the school as well, into the administration, who themselves mostly have these phones, and also would be happy if it broke, because they themselves are suffering from it. If there would be the emes, if there would be an honest way to do this, then that boy wouldn't be crying. It would happen eventually, because they grow up. But at least we'd be able to preserve those years where they could still be children somehow, in some way. But the second that there's one parent in the class that looks the other way, as long as there's one parent in the class, it's for fun. Then the games all begin. And the school has to have the no tolerance policy, but then someone calls up and says, but I know that the kid has, and then the school says this will not be tolerated. And then you call it the next week, so what did you do? Nothing. Or you give another speech to the auditorium. Now this will not be tolerated. And you call up the parent, and the parent says, no, we don't, no, it's all, we won't from now on, and it's all scar. Because of that, the parents don't have a chance. The ones that are trying don't have a chance. They don't have a chance, because as long as there are other kids in the class, the other parents that let the kids have it, so I asked this Rabbi, would you come talk to the Chaburah Yosef HaTzadik about what you're seeing? He told me this mice. I said, you gotta come talk to the guys. He said, I'll come. To talk to the guys. Because he's running up against a brick wall. He'll tell you himself. Maybe he won't have it. I don't know. He might be afraid. But he's coming up against a brick wall trying to get this across to parents. And to talk to administrations in the schools about that we need to do something about this. And instead of speeches, write letters and notices. This is what's happening. And we are the ones who have let the borders down. Getting back to the Nakuba. The borders are down. It's our fault that the borders are open. So everybody's going to blame some technician that fell asleep on the computer and how the Arabs got in. We let the Arabs in a long time ago. In our homes, in our yeshivas, in our country, in our society, we let them in. We were the ones that opened up the borders. And we're the only ones that can close the borders. And there are soldiers that are dying every day. Trying to close the borders that only Am Yisrael, together with the soldiers, only us and our avodah, are able to close. Hashem should help them. We should have safe, closed borders, and everybody should be safe. We should be there and see the Amen.